Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on this pair of Moreton Bay Ficus. They're a native tree to Australia. These trees were grown from a seed by Florence of the Toronto Club, and when she moved out west she gave me these trees. And I've done a lot of severe work on them, severe root work, getting the start of a nice radial root system. These are a large leaf bonsai. I would put them in the same category as the Ficus elastic or rubber trees. Large leaves and kind of coarse growth. They can be developed into really nice bonsai. I've seen some really good examples in Australia. So I've done that initial work getting the start of a nice buttress root system. And these trees are famous for their fantastic trunks and buttress roots and aerial roots. So they're an exciting tree to develop as a bonsai. Here's a look at the trees. So the one is growing in a mesh basket, and it had escape roots coming out the bottom into the gravel on the floor of the greenhouse here. So it's done quite well. It's got lots of vigor. I have a palm tree growing beside it here. I think I stuck some seeds in the soil, and this one is doing quite well. The other one is in a clay nursery pot, and it's doing quite well too. It also got an escape root out the bottom. So it comes up this trunk, divides into two, and this one is fairly meager. All the growth has gone into this trunk line, and you can see all the growth up top. This other one has a kind of a double trunk. It divides early, and it's also grown really well, lots of vigor over the summer. In one of the recent videos, I repotted my little rubber trees into a new pot. I did root work on them, and I've been keeping them really small. And I'm wondering if I should do the same for these trees, is to keep them as very small trees. It would mean some severe height reduction today. But I don't have a lot of space to grow these trees into large bonsai. I would just run out of room in the plant room. So that's one of the reasons I'm thinking of keeping them small. So I think today I'm going to repot the trees, do some more root work on them. I think the roots will be, they've probably grown quite a bit in this pot. You can see them coming out the sides of the pot. And I was thinking, of doing the severe reduction to them and growing them as smaller bonsai. I think the leaf size will reduce quite nicely. You can see on this tree, the leaf size is quite a reasonable size. And in a smaller pot, I think it would reduce even further. If I had all the space in the world, I would grow these into large bonsai, something like this one over here, my Ficus microcarpa. Grow it into quite a large tree, but I don't have all the space. I'm quite restricted in my plant room over the winter, so that's one of the reasons I was thinking of reducing these trees back and make them small bonsai. Both these trees have been in the greenhouse here for the entire summer and fall. So they've been used to some pretty cold weather here in the greenhouse. It gets down to 8 degrees Celsius at night, which is about 46 degrees Fahrenheit. So if I do the root pruning today, top prune them, and put them into the plant room where it's nice, warm, humid, and good light, I think they'll recover very quickly. So it's a good time of the year to do some work to these trees, especially that they've been growing all summer. They have a ton of vigor in them. So if I do severe reduction today, root pruning, get them in new pots, I think they'll recover very quickly in the plant room. So here I go. I'm going to begin the work by defoliating the trees. I want to see the structure nice and clearly before I do any pruning. So here I go. I'll begin defoliating the trees. And because these trees don't have a lot of ramification on them, there's not a lot of leaves to defoliate. You can see it's going quite quickly.
And it's bleeding lots. There's a, as I said, there's a ton of vigor in these trees.
Okay, I am done. Here is a look at the tree now. So you can see it has, you know, some good taper, and then it gets up, and this section's quite long. It doesn't have much taper, you know, from about here up. I do have some good branch structure up top. So I've got to decide, you know, how far I want to reduce these trees back. I could keep, you know, the structure I have and just prune all these long shoots back is a possibility, or I could do some pretty hard pruning and cut them back to just basically, you know, this bottom section, and then develop new branches from my cut points. My priority is to develop a really nice start to the tree, a good buttressed root base. That's part of the charm of these Moreton Bay Ficuses, is that beautiful buttressed root base. So that's kind of my priority right now. The top of the tree doesn't really matter so much. That will come with time. So, how big do I want this tree? That's the question. I'm going to begin the pruning, and I think I'll begin by pruning all the long branches back. I don't think it'll be too big a tree. I think it's a good size if I just prune the branches back. So I'll start there, and if I decide I have to prune it back further, then I will. So I'll begin on this branch here. I've got a branch coming off the bottom here. There's one out the back, but that one's dead. So I will prune this one back, and you can see the leaf scars where the leaves were, and use directional pruning on it. So I'm going to take this one off right to here, like that. On my vertical leader here, I'll take it off right here. This little branch is fine, I don't need to touch that. And then here I've got kind of bar branches. They're both nice. The one goes out the back and the one off to the side. I'll remove that dead branch here. It's just a little one. And I've got to decide what to do here. The other option is prune the leader off, which might be a good option. Keeping these two branches, or I could remove the back branch and maybe develop one, you know, further down out the back, or one from up here. Tough decision. I'll think about it. I'll start on this branch. I'll prune this one back. I'm looking for a leaf scar that's kind of facing the right hand side here. I think to here. Kind of redirecting this branch from coming up the front, more off to the side a bit. There's a little dead branch back here I can prune away. And then I've got this long one. It's a good leaf scar there, so I think I'll prune it just right here. So that's got it reduced back. I guess I could take the tip off here too. Like that. So I'm looking at what I've got left here now. Here's a look at the tree now. So there isn't a lot of taper and movement on this vertical trunk, but it looks very natural too. If I want to develop a canopy up top, I start my branching here. This trunk line here is again very cylindrical. There's not much taper or movement to it. But, you know, most trees in nature, they don't have wildly curving and tapered trunks. So I think if I go for a natural style, I think it's okay. I will remove
this branch that's crossing the trunk line here. So that's gone. And then I've got to decide about what I'm going to do here. I think I need to remove this back branch and then develop, you know, one from a different location out the back. I think this is a nice branch, this one here, and I think my apex kind of, it's already got a good transition from this part of the trunk up into here. So I'm going to remove this one. So here I go. That's gone. So the structure is definitely simplified now. Do I want to chop it any further? I don't really think so. I think it's good. I do have a branch I pruned off here that I'll clean up that cut. So I'll just come in and clean that up a bit. A better front might be somewhere here on the tree, closing up that V shape there. Right now the two trunks are flat on to the viewer, so probably having this go out the back is a little better. Maybe somewhere there looks good. I do have the option of reducing this top back and maybe this branch back, losing my ramification, but tightening up my divisions, get the length of this before I get branching. I don't know if I want to do that. I think I'll wait and see. Maybe there'll be new branches develop on the trunk that'll give me more options in the future. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now for the pruning on this tree. So the next step, I want to repot it, and I want to manage these roots as much as I can to get a really nice root base on it. And I'm sure after a year of growing, the root system can use pruning to get it balanced again and get more ramification in the roots. Here's what I took off the tree today. So all the leaves, pruned the branches back, and I'm just left with a basic skeleton of the tree.
I'll repot the tree now, and I'll put the little palm in its own pot also.
I'll start the repot by cutting away those roots that are growing out bottom. I think that'll make it a little harder to get the tree out of the pot. There's a big thick root there. Yeah, so lots of root growth in a year. And I'll trim the roots on the side here too, because they'll be tying the tree into the pot. And this is my ficus, that climbing ficus. It grew and then it rooted into the side of the pot here. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, I'm going to try and get the tree out of the pot now. So here I go. It's a little bit locked in because of the mesh pot, but it's coming. Just gotta free up those roots on the side. There we go. Okay. So next, I will begin to rake out the soil. And I'll see what roots have developed over the summer. The soil is still in good shape. It's nice, porous. Ficus love this porous kind of soil. Okay, I've pretty well got it bare rooted now, so I'm going to take it outside and just wash it in a tub of water. get rid of all the old soil, and I'll clean up and we'll come back and do the root pruning. Here is a look at the root system on the tree. So it has a lot of good stuff happening. There's a lot that needs sorting out though. Quite a large root here. I think I probably cut that off at one point. Okay, so let's begin the pruning. So this root, the radial direction is here, and you can see it's kind of cranked over. So I think that's going to need correction. And when I mean correction, I mean quite severe pruning. So I'm going to take it off. My soil level was here, so I'll keep it in the soil, but not by a lot. So I'm going to take the end off here, like that. I have another root here, the radial direction's here, and this one's quite far off that, so I'll take that part of the root off. I have a root here that's going out horizontally. It doesn't flow down into the soil, so I'm going to remove that one totally. And I will clean up that spot on the trunk where it was. Just make a better cut like that. This root here that I was working on, it's, again, it doesn't flow down into the soil. It's very horizontal. Can't do much about it though. This one does flow down a little too deep into the soil, so that's going to have to be pruned off somewhere about here. Taking that off. Now, I've got this big thick root off to the side here. So the radial direction of this root is here, and both of these parts of the root system aren't radial. They're too far over, so I'm going to remove those. I think I'll rough cut them with the ratcheting pruners first. Coming in like this. Cutting those off. I have a root here again. It's very horizontal. It doesn't flow down into the soil. I'm going to cut at least the end off of it. I have a root on the bottom here. I've got some aerial roots coming off the trunk up top here. I'm going to remove those. They just come out of the trunk at 90 degrees. They don't flow downwards, so they don't contribute to the beauty of the trunk. This one is close to angling downwards, but again, there's lots of time to grow, aerial roots later on in the tree's life. I think the first priority is to get this primary root system sorted out. Try to anyway. Okay, this root's looking pretty good here. So the radial direction is here, so it's not too far off, so I'll prune the end off here. And I'll prune the end off here. Keeping it, fairly radial. Just trim it back a little bit. Like that. Root going straight up here. I can get rid of that. Prune this one back. bit more. So I've got a root on the bottom here. It starts from this one and then it grows back across the root base. So I've got to get rid of that. So I'll come in and cut that back, taking that bottom root off. I'm just going to go over to my tub of water and re-comb this now that I can get into the root base. And I'll comb it out and wash it in the water. So I'll be right back. Okay, I've washed it out once again so I can see what's going underneath the root base a little better. So I've got a root growing to the inside here. I'll clip that one away. Another one here. I've got a root growing straight down here that I'm going to clip off shorter. And maybe even shorter than that. Well, I've got... that might be it. I can't really go too much shorter or I'd prune this root off, which isn't too bad a root. I guess I could. This one's going a strange direction. I'll get rid of that. And this one. Getting a little far off the radial direction, these ones. And I'll get rid of the end here. Keeping that root kind of flowing out. There's one up top here I'm going to get rid of. I'm going to do a little nibbling here, just cleaning up where I cut these big roots off. Something like that. I think that'll heal quite nicely. Let me comb the roots out here. That one's a little long. Pull that back. These ones are a little long. I'll prune those back. And this one. Well, it's getting a little flatter and a little more radial. There's a lot of roots growing from the inside here. Here's the radial direction. These are like 90 degrees to it. They don't flow, so they're coming out. Keeping my flowing roots. This one's kind of growing uphill. I'm going to get rid of that one. And then, can I reduce the bottom to get it laying a little flatter? It would be hitting right here. not really. I'd be pruning off these roots here if I went any lower. Well, it's improved the root system. I'm still worried about this big thick one here. I want to eventually have a nice balanced radial root system, and I'm pretty far off that. I'm going to prune this root off shorter here. I always try and do as much root pruning as I can with each repotting, but I still want the tree to live. I don't want to, could just cut everything back flat and start over with new roots. But I try and keep as much of the root system as I have, because you get nice bark and flow. If I start off with new roots, I'll have a line, just like a cutting, with new fresh roots coming out. It takes a long time for those new roots to blend in with the trunk. Well, that might be it for the root pruning. It's quite far off of, a beautiful radial root system. I'll prune this one back just a little more. Yeah, I think that's going to be it. So next, I've got to find a pot, and I don't want a big pot. I think, I want to keep this small and compact. So I'll want a pot about this big, just a little bit bigger than the root system, so it develops all kinds of new roots in that pot. And hopefully it keeps the leaf size and the growth a little more finer up top too, so I can develop a better branch structure. Here's a look at the root system now. And here is what I took off it today. So, a fair amount, but I think there's plenty on the tree. It'll grow quite well over the winter. Florence was a member of the Toronto Bonsai Society, and I got this 60th anniversary pot for winning Best Tropical at their 60th anniversary show. So there's the logo down there of the 60th anniversary. And I think it's a good size for this tree. You can see there's quite a bit of room for the roots to grow. It's not too big, not too small. I think it'll do quite well in this pot. So I think that's what I'll use. A 60th anniversary pot for the tree that I got from Florence. I need to put some drainage mesh in the bottom of this pot. And Chris Marshall from CM Bonsai, a YouTube channel, noticed I was getting low on drainage mesh, and he sent me some all the way from Ireland. So thanks very much, Chris. He sent me a nice letter, and he sent me a packet of seeds. Tom from Grown Clip Bonsai for Seniors sent me this thimble quite a while ago, and I lost it because the cats were playing with it. So he sent me 3 more thimbles. So I've got those, and that's for the Thimble Bonsai Challenge. So growing a tree, a little tiny tree in these thimbles. So thanks very much, Tom, and thanks very much, Chris. I'll put links to Chris's channel, CM Bonsai, in the description below, and Tom's channel, Grown Clip Bonsai for Seniors. They're both really good channels, so I hope you check them out. Alright, I'll get the drainage screen cut out. So this pot has wire tie-down holes, and I think my soil would fit through these holes, so I'm going to make a mesh that covers the main hole and the 2 smaller holes. And I heard that the red inside of the drainage hole here on this pot was inspired by the Louboutin shoes that have the red bottom on the sole, so that's kind of a cool touch. Alright, so here goes my drainage mesh, cutting it out to fit the bottom of the pot. Just like that. So you can see it covers all the holes up. So now I can add a base layer of soil, and I want the tree maybe about that height. So just a shallow drainage layer in the bottom, and then I'll plant the tree on top. I'm going to use the same soil. It's only a year old and it's in really good shape and it's good soil. So I'll put a mound in the middle and then I can position the tree. And I'll put it quite central in the pot. Allowing those roots to grow in a nice radial direction. So I think somewhere about there is good. Now, even though this is a round pot, there is a front to the pots because of the feet. So you can either have 1 foot out the front or the feet to each side. So I'm just having a look at the pot, deciding where a good front for the pot is. I think right here. I think this is a good front. It's got a nice recess at the front for showing the feet. So I'll position the tree now based on that. And I was going to think this was going to be the front of the tree. And I was going to rotate it slightly. So let me reposition this like this. I'm going to offset it to the right hand side just a little bit. Let me show you a view of the front here. So here is a view of the front of the tree. Maybe that's just rotated a little too much, more like that. I like it right about there. I think that's good. So there's the front of the pot there. Okay, so next I've got to make sure my roots are combed out. So I'll just rake out the surface roots, making sure they're all flowing radially. I think this root system, I think you'll see it might take, maybe 5 to 10 years before it's actually really, really nice. But it'll get there. You just have to work on them every time you repot them. And eventually you get a really good looking root system. So I'm going to add soil around the roots now. So here I go. And then right now the roots are fairly horizontal, so I always lift the tree up slightly. So here I go, just kind of lifting it up a bit to make sure all those roots are kind of flowing down into the soil rather than being too horizontal. If your roots are horizontal, you can't slowly raise the tree over the years, exposing the root base because they're horizontal and they'll come out of the soil. If you have the roots flowing down nicely into the soil, every year you can raise the root base a little bit, exposing your surface roots. So I've just got to make sure the soil is making good contact with the roots. There wasn't a lot of roots, so it should be pretty good. There won't be any air pockets underneath the tree or anything. Yeah, I think that's good. So I'll top up the soil level now. All my roots are safely under the soil, so they should grow quite well. Tamp my soil down. That's a good level. I can still see the lip of the pot, so when I water it, the water doesn't just run off over the edges of the pot. Okay, I think that is good. think I'm ready to water the tree.
All right, here I go.
This is very exciting, developing this tree. It's draining really, really nicely. Okay, that will do.
Here is a look at my first Moreton Bay fig repotted. So I'll rotate it around so you can see it from all angles. So here's the front. Coming around to the right-hand side. The back. The left-hand side. And back to the front. I've got the first Moreton Bay Ficus all done, ready to go in the plant room to grow for the winter. So now I'm going to start on tree number 2. So these two trees are a little different. This one kind of has a slanting trunk to begin with, and the other one is a little more of a formal upright broom style. So it'll be interesting to develop the root system on both trees and see how they look in the future.